Welcome, everyone. This is CavsHQ Happy Hour presented by Budweiser. John and Rafa, great to have you with us once again. Well, last night the draft took place. Rafa, it all shakes out. Cavaliers are picking 5. Goes like this. There's Hornets, Bulls, and Cavs. While the Cavs were slotted 2, they 5. Still a good pick. I mean, you knew the Cavs, they were picking from 1 to that 5 slot. Going to get a good kid coming out here.
For sure, I think at the end of the day, we are going to be picking a top player for us to join whatever we have ready, which is a really good nucleus. But we'll get to that part, John. The first question I have is, how did it feel to be back inside Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse and inside our studios at CavsHQ?
It felt great. To be to even at the beginning say alongside Austin Carr, this is John White. I mean, to be alongside AC again, it was great. There were Wine and Gold United members in there for the draft lottery party, just to see some familiar faces, even if it was from a distance. It was great. It also should be noted, Rafa, that since you have joined the Cavaliers, the Cavs have never actually moved up in a draft lottery. Your streak continues.
Well, I think you're being unfair with that, with analyzing it that way, because since I came to the Cavs, you have gone to the playoff almost every year. At least you went 4 straight years. The Cavs went to 4 finals. And yesterday, on the watch party that we have with the Wine and Gold United members, I showed everybody the lucky charm that we had given Brad Doherty, who was a representative. But there is an investigation going on because apparently either somebody from the Timberwolves or the Warriors went into Brad Doherty's green room and switched the photo that he had in his pocket, and look at what they put in his pocket.
How long did it take you to do that? How long did that gag take?
One day we ended up with the 5 spot.
Yeah, all these grand claims about, we got the good luck, Brad set, I'm taking care of him, and then what? A 2 to 5 slide. So Rafa's hot streak continues. For the second year in a row, we're going to pick 5th. Darius Garland last year at the 5. Some notable picks. Let's look at the last 3 years. Darius Garland last year, season before Trae Young. He's doing pretty well in the NBA. And how about De'Aaron Fox, another up-and-coming point guard with the Kings? You look up and down this list. I'm looking since the lottery started, which is back in 1985. Scottie Pippen, Mitch Richmond, a lot of good names on this list. Ray Allen, that was a pretty good draft. Kevin Garnett. So, like I said, the Cavs, we talked to the front office, we talked to the organization. They're comfortable that this is a deep draft. They know that they've run out all the ground balls. They've done their groundwork. Obviously, there's still some work to be done. We're going to talk to our featured guest, who is head coach Bickerstaff, coming up about this, what happens now as the Cavs get ready for the draft. But the draft is deep, and like I mentioned, there are good players sitting all around right there at 5.
And the most important thing is, first of all, I would like to add Charles Barkley to that list of players that were picked 5 in the history of the draft, the NBA draft. And you could have like a whole all-star team. But you mentioned the time, and you mentioned the fact that now this is where all our front office and our scouters really get to work. And I'm sure that they have been prepared not only to pick 1, but they have been prepared in case we pick 2. So that the work has already been done. Now it's time for the interviews. Now it's time for these kids to get their chance to be picked either from 1 to 5. Because even though Minnesota is the number 1 pick, you already hear of things that people, who might be the number 1 pick. But this is the time when even through Zoom, you can really get a lot of what the essence of these kids. We haven't been able to watch them play in college much because of what happened with COVID-19, but you and I know that the scouts and the front offices have been following these kids since they got into varsity basketball and with all the leagues that they play on, AAU and all that. They all know who they are. It doesn't matter now, the interviews and the way the kids are going to be good at sending their videos, their workouts. To me, it's interesting to see how this is going to develop. But I know that our staff and our leaders know what we need to bring into what we have already to continue building and going back into not wanting to be left out of the NBA party. I mean, this is going to be a big piece coming in for us. And then not to mention that we also have another rookie, Dylan Windler, who will be stepping into the court next season.
It's something to keep in mind, too, for casual observers of the NBA. Cavs are picking 5th, right? They don't have a second-round pick. That's been traded away. So that's their only pick right now in the draft. But you have to remember that the Cavs do not have a board that only goes from 1 to 5. I mean, that board goes from 1 to 60 because trades take place, all over the board. You look in – last year's a perfect example, right? Kevin Porter's still sitting there at the end of the first round. The Cavs say, look, we got to go do something, go get this kid. And that's precisely what they did. Dan Gilbert, of course, with the resources, says, hey, pay whatever you need to do, go get them. And obviously it's already started to reap rewards. You brought up an interesting point, Rob. There haven't been individual workouts yet. This is now, again, that's the individual workouts tend to help, as I was talking to a couple of the assistant coaches, they tend to help fringe kids a little bit more because they can jump up with individual workouts. The lottery kids, you have a pretty good idea. Workout can, it can still have an impact, but maybe not as big for a kid who's off the radar and can jump onto the radar. But, it's only Zoom meetings now, Rafa. There have not been any in-person meetings, and it's unclear how that's going to work and into the draft. I can't wait to talk to JB about this because it's a lot at stake here. No tournament. You look at John Moran a couple of seasons ago, Rafa. That's the big game, right? Everybody's looking to Murray State. What is this kid going to be like? So much pressure coming onto him. Out they go, first round upset, 5 seed in Marquette. He has a triple-double, solidifies that number 2 spot in terms of being drafted. And here the kid sits. He's going to be the Rookie of the Year this year in the NBA. So though they have done all of the homework, obviously there's less to go on. And I'm curious, JB's, he's been around this league since he's been a kid. I'm curious to see how they're dealing with this and how different it will be as we actually come into October when they're going to pick whoever they're going to select at 5.
And the mental portion of this is really big, John, because we know all these kids being drafted maybe from 1 to, 30, let's say just the first round, they all have been the focal point of whatever team they were playing at. But coming into the NBA, becoming professionals, they at least 2/3 of that group is going to realize that they're not going to be the focal point. And they have to learn of what is it that they can bring to the table to make and get a job in the NBA. Maybe it will be your defensive skills that you need to work on, or you need to really, sharpen, or maybe it's that you're a good shooter, but the team that you come into, your minutes are gonna be played if you're really good at moving the ball. I don't know. I'm just saying that the mental part is really important for these kids to come in. The kids coming out of Memphis, everybody knows he's a freak of nature. His body, 7-footer, and everything else. But the suspension he had and the 3 games that he played this season, his interview is going to be very, very important to see what this guy has in between the years, just to see if you want to bring that into your club.
Yeah, you're talking about James Wiseman, and we see these small sample sizes. 3 games. He played 69 minutes, grand total of 69 minutes in college, took 24 shots, 18 of which were putbacks or dunks. So what do we know about James Wiseman, from his collegiate career? Pretty much nothing, other than the fact that he is huge, can be dominant. And that's somewhat of the norm, Rafa. Darius Garland, 5 career games. With all these one-and-dones, that's enough of a small sample size. Now, if some of that season's taken away, you're not dealing with much. Kyrie Irving, 11 games. How about Porter for Denver? Michael Porter only played 3 collegiate games with Missouri, really finding his way in the bubble and stepping up the way that they hoped that he would. But in general, there's not a lot to go on when you have, so many of these one-and-dones coming into the NBA.
I think it's amazing to see what we're about to, and we have faith in our guys, especially their knowledge and the game being so global. For example, the kid from Maccabi Tel Aviv, Avija, he's the one that has played the most this year, but he's played 60 games as a professional already in Europe. So there is something to see there. Now, not many people have seen them. Obviously, all the teams have scouts all over the world now, the game being so global. But it's time for the guys to roll up their sleeves. And obviously, we're going to talk to JB about how busy they've been already. And now that they know what their spot is, now they really get to trim it down to who they think will be up there on the board when it's time and when the Cavs are on the clock.
Yeah, Denny Avila out of Israel, as you said, considered the top European prospect, a wing, a long guy. So, again, we'll see. There's an interesting crop of players up there at the top expected to be taken in that top 10 group. And with that, let's bring in our featured guest. It is none other than the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, JB Bickerstaff. And here he is, our special guest, Cavs head coach JB Bickerstaff. JB, how's that great family of yours? Everything good?
Hi, everybody's good. Yeah, today was first day of school, so we went to drop kids off at school, and that was it was an interesting experience, to be honest with you. One like I think none of us have seen before, but to see a bunch of little, second, third, fourth graders with masks on, temperature checks, and hand sanitizer was interesting. But hopefully, it's the right decision for our kids, to get them back in school.
No question. Glad everything's good on that front. Last night, we find out the Cavaliers are going to pick fifth heading into the draft in October. Your reaction as we go into this draft process? There's been a lot of the draft process already, but as we come in here to the home stretch, as we get ready for the draft.
We're excited. You know what I mean? I think looking at this draft, at the fifth pick, we're going to get a good player. We're going to get a guy who fits what we're looking for, what we're trying to become. I think the fifth pick allows you, to take a deeper look. And if there's a guy who some may feel is, a later pick, but you like him, he's your guy, you can go after him. And, it allows you some flexibility in your pick as well. But we're excited about it. We feel like we're going to get a good pick, a player who can, fit with the mix of young guys and the veterans that we have now, but who symbolizes where we're building and what we're trying to accomplish.
Another serious question. Do you, like Rafa and I, hold Brad Daugherty personally responsible for not getting the number one pick?
I won't say that out loud. Brad, it's the way the balls go. So we just live with it. But, I give Brad a ton of respect, so I'm not going to do that like you will.
JB, you mentioned, taking your kids to school and how that has changed, in the new normal. Can you talk to us a little bit about how this process changes now that which spot we have? We also assume that we have a target list of kids that we really look into that can come in and contribute right away to what you are trying to build here. But how is that process now with the interviews, with the workouts, and with the face-to-face that is the new normal?
Yeah, well, it's still questionable, to be honest with you. We don't exactly know what it's going to look like. We're so used to one way of, getting our hands on guys, the face-to-face. We've obviously, our front office and stuff has obviously started to do some interviews already via Zoom and those types of things. But, making a decision without, getting a guy in on a one-on-one and, reading body language and facial expressions and, being able to put them on the court and test them. You can see a lot of guys' competitive nature. If you put a hard drill on the floor and, the guy doesn't finish the drill or, he does it, and he excels in the drill. Like there's a lot of things that you can tell about guys when you can tailor the drill or the workout to yourself and what you're looking for. And we just don't know what that's going to look like just yet. Fortunately for us, like our front office and staff and scouts are unbelievable and work their butts off. So they've been out and they've seen these guys live. They do a lot of research and digging on guys' backgrounds and have a lot of conversations with people who have known these guys for a long time. So they get a really good feel for them. But, again, it's just for us as coaches, we're in the middle of the season. So we don't have those same opportunities. And, you like to feel comfortable having a one-on-one conversation or, like I said, putting a guy through a drill, or if there's something you question in his skill set, putting him on the floor and taking a steady look at and breaking it down. So, we're hopeful. We'll wait and see what the league allows us to do. But, again, it is different. And, it's something we just have to get used to. And that's what I want everybody to know and to think about our organization is, like, we're not going to make excuses about it, right? Whatever the situation is, we're going to take it head on and we're going to figure out a way to make it work.
The fact that you haven't gotten to work anybody out intrigues me. And you've been part of this process, JB, in many different roles. You know, assistant coach, the guy actually working players out, and now as head coach, a lot of different roles. You know, some say that it affects fringe guys more, guys who might, you know, be able to jump up. They weren't really on the radar, but they have some great workouts and they get up more than the lottery guys. Do you agree with that, or does it standard across the board in terms of, hey, if we get to work this guy out, we're going to find out a lot more than we would if we didn't work the guy out?
Yeah, I think it impacts, you know, probably, you know, the 4 and back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think 1 through 3, normally in most drafts, guys have a pretty good idea of, you know, who they are, and, you know, there can be a consensus there. You know, once you fall to 4 and back, you know, it just becomes a matter of who likes you. So if, you know, someone thinks you're the 20th pick on their draft board, but you go in against whoever may be considered the top 5 and, you know, you show out and have a great workout, it just takes one team to like you. You know, some of the guys in the second round, you know, some of the older players, some of the seniors that are end up in this draft, I think it can hurt them. Just because, again, you know, people tend to go younger, tend to go on potential, unless it's a guy you really like, right? And that like comes from the face-to-face. It comes from, you know, watching the competition against those other guys. And, again, you got to find that like factor. So, you know, I think, you know, the kids will be impacted. But, again, it's, you know, it's just what we're faced with. And I hope for those kids' sakes that their agents are helping them as much as they can, their families helping them as much as they can. College coaches are helping as much as they can because, you know, again, a lot of this business is about relationships. So, you know, if your college coach has a relationship with a front office member, you know, and you reach out and you're selling it, you know, maybe that opens a door. So, you know, again, it is tough, but it's something that we just have to deal with at this point.
How much do you take the input, for example, JB, of some of our players have played with these kids at some point in AAU, in high school, or anywhere. So I'm sure there are some that our guys know very well, right? Have you received any input on that side?
Yeah, we ask our guys, but it's, you know, that information is always a little shaky. If the guy had a good night on him, you know, and the guy doesn't like him, you know what I mean? So we ask them their question. But what is the truth is, if our guys say a guy can play, that guy can really play. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because, you know, obviously they've seen him on a consistent basis, whether it's college or the AAU circuit. But if they give a guy props, then they must really deserve those props.
It's like a player in the heat of the moment asking you to review something, right? They're usually the least reliable person that you can ask to get a legit call.
Right. I promise I didn't touch it. Yeah, it went right off your hand. Get out of here.
Hey, we got some good news 3 days ago. The NBA Players Association, they agreed to conduct group workouts in market. I know you've been pushing for this. Kobe Altman's been pushing for this. Is that what you were looking for? Is that, you know, does this suffice? You know, you talk about getting your hands on the players and the competitive disadvantage for the 22 teams in the bubble. Is this what you had in mind?
You know, man, at this point, we'll take anything. You know what I mean? We're not picky. You know, all that matters to us is that we get our guys together. We get our guys on the floor, and we get an opportunity to work and build some chemistry. That's important. You know, like the groups that are down there in the bubble, the basketball is a piece of what they're doing. And, you know, speaking of the teams that didn't end up making the playoffs, the basketball is a piece of what they were doing. The chemistry, the team building, the experiences that they were gaining with one another. Like I talked to a coach friend of mine who, you know, made the point that the relationships that he was building with his players was unlike any other, you know, opportunity because the guys had nowhere to go. They had no other commitments. They didn't have any, you know, events or, you know, there was no community stuff. There was, you know, no commercials being shot. So the guys just spent time together. And as a head coach, he was able to just spend time with his guys individually. And that's priceless. You know, that relationship is priceless, especially at our level. So, you know, we deserve that opportunity as well. And, you know, we're looking forward to it and we'll make the most of it.
Isn't the poster team for that, you know, Monty Williams and the Phoenix Suns? I mean, that team that looks a lot like yours, a lot of young talent coming together on the cusp of making that move. And they get these, you know, they're not in the playoffs, but they surge from 13th in the West, almost get into that 8-9 series. And I think that, you know, that shows that personifies exactly what you're talking about for, that competitive disadvantage that the 8 teams don't get, right?
And the confidence that it instills in them. You know what I mean? Like now they believe that they can win. And when you are a building team, the most difficult thing is to instill that confidence in your guys that you can win, because fourth quarters in the NBA are tough. There's a lot of stars who can make a lot of plays, and being able to, have that confidence that, hey, we did it before. We've been competitive in fourth quarters and we've won tight games against good teams and good players is definitely a boost.
Let's switch gears now, JB. Basketball is important, but there are a couple of very important dates coming up for everybody in this country. And I know our organization has been really in the front of this, even with Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse being a place where people can come register to vote on National Registration Voters Day, and also a place to come and exercise your right to vote. But this week, with the 100th anniversary of women being allowed to vote, your mother and your wife have been very active as well. I mean, the Bickerstaff family has really come up to bat here.
Yeah, no, it's something that's important. I mean, I don't know if you guys can see this. I got this. Coach Popovich sent it to me in the mail, and he said wear it as much and as often as you can. And that's been my goal. Every opportunity I get, I put it on, because the message is extremely clear. It is the largest responsibility that we have as citizens of this country is to participate in our democracy. We can't complain about things aren't affecting us, or things that are affecting us are not going our way, and then decide not to participate. So the most important thing we can do is get out and vote. The most important thing we can do is encourage other people to vote. And we cannot allow, votes to be suppressed. I think that's one of the things that, over our history, we've learned the importance and the impact that, a small amount of votes can have. And in the past, people who are the powers that be have tried to limit, certain groups' ability to vote, whether it's women, whether it's minorities, whether it's young people, what we're seeing now. And, we can't allow that. Everybody should be allowed to participate in our elections who's eligible. And we should be, accelerating that and pushing it and not trying to suppress it.
Great. What I would like to see after this election is over, it would be nice to see us work the whole 4 years to make sure that our voting system kind of matches the time that we're living on. I mean, we're having issues with mail-in votes. When we have the internet, we have the computer, we can do so much with money and everything over the internet, but we can't cast a vote, by just simply going, visiting a website and doing the vote, or even fixing, like you said, that everybody has the same rights and the same ability to go on or to exercise the right.
And that's what I know. Like, as a country, if we put our mind to it, we can get anything we want done. Right. But I do believe that there are those people who are satisfied with the way the system is because it allows them to remain in power. And they don't want, the status quo to change, because if it changes, just like the demographics of our country, right, the people who are in power will change as well. And, power wants to maintain power, but it's our responsibility as citizens to make sure that the power, fits the demographics of our country and the people of our country.
Well, hats off to you, JB. Hats off to your wife. Hats off to your mother. Did I see, by the way, you're on Twitter now? Is that an imposter? Or is that actually? I didn't believe it.
Yeah, I didn't believe it either, to be honest.
I had to ask the source.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's 2020, and I figured, what? It's probably about time for me to get with the times. So yesterday, I talked to BJ and Lucy. And we figured out a way, and I'm on there. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a lot going on Twitter that I'm not familiar with. I feel like my dad right now, trying to keep up with technology. I think he even had a Twitter account and an Instagram account before I did. So I'm a little behind the times, but I guess it's time to catch up.
At JB Bickerstaff _ That's for everybody who wants to start following our head coach.
Yeah, I didn't even know that, so thank you.
That's news. That's news to me, right? Hey, before we let you go, what's next? All right, we got the draft coming up in October. What's next on your agenda in terms of guys coming back into the building. We have the thing coming up in September, of course. What's next for you? What takes place as the next couple of weeks unfold?
We've had all of our guys in town the past 2 weeks and doing individual work with them, doing some team building things with them. We had a great experience where we went to the Browns stadium and got to get on the field there and work with our guys and play a little two-hand touch football with the group. So that was fun. But we're trying to figure out how we can just keep building momentum in the right way. Again, we feel that we were heading in the right direction before the shutdown, and it's, we need to make sure that we continue to build that. So whatever it takes, some guys will stay in town the next couple of weeks. Some guys will leave and then be prepared to come back. But now it's time to buckle down, right? We got to figure out who at number 5 is going to be best for us, and we need to make sure we get that done.
Rafa, final thoughts?
Can't wait to see you again, Coach, on a court and with the guys going at it, full uniform, and hopefully with fans in our stands.
No, that'll be awesome. Rafa, and I forgot to tell you, too, the mango was delicious. Just so
excellent. What about the bobblehead? I see still you have the boxes over there. I mean, I thought it was going to be front and center. Yeah.
Hey, he wasn't far away from me, Rafa. I had to go get him, but he wasn't far away.
You're the man.
Why do you humor him? Why do you encourage this guy, Coach? Please. If it was in the corner in the waste can, it would be a heck of a lot better.
Hey, I did have to grab him out of the garbage can, don't I?
That's right. Hey, JB, always good seeing you. Take care. Be safe. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys.
All right. Our thanks to our featured guest, Cavs head coach JB Bickerstaff. For Rafa, I'm John. This has been Cavs HQ Happy Hour. There's Rafa Bobblehead, presented by Budweiser.
And if we ever lose our way, remember who we are today.